today is January 5th. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Today I'm joined by Western Standard Assistant Opinion and Broadcast Editor, Cory Morgan. How you doing, Cory?
Very good.
You must be. Your show triggered with Cory Morgan. I'm loving it. I've actually got it on a big TV, and I've got it on in the background as I'm working all day. It's great.
Good. It's been going really well. I'm quite enjoying it. I mean, it's evolving. We're figuring out our format, but
I'm enjoying it, and you are a prickly pear.
I get it out of my system, and if anything, it's good for Jane because I vent, I get it out, and she doesn't have to listen to my crap when I get home.
Perfect. Also joined by the lovely Melanie Risden. How you doing, Melanie?
Good.
Melanie's subbing in for our news editor, Dave Naylor, today, who is off in beautiful British Columbia. Melanie is a reporter with the Western Standard here. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the great work she does. We've got a good show today. Justin Trudeau says that the unvaccinated are racists, misogynists, extremists, and they eat babies and are cannibals too, I think. Explosive comments from the Prime Minister that he made in French that didn't seem to really make the rounds into English Canada until certain family members of Western Standard newsroom had it translated from Le Français into Albertan. And we managed to figure out what the comments were. Explosive stuff. We're going to be talking about that. A journalist from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, has quit and has written a very fiery response to her time there, saying the organization has become drunk on wokeness, intolerable. She was the most left-wing member of the newsroom when she started 8 to 10 years ago, and now she's considered a right-wing extremist, someone Justin Trudeau probably wouldn't like. We're going to dive into that. And relatively breaking news from this morning, the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation, the CMHC, essentially one of the bureaucracy that oversees housing and whatnot in Ottawa, is recommending, much I believe to Liberal delight, that a home equity tax be imposed on Canadian taxpayers. Well, that one's attracting a ton of attention.
Yes.
The readership on that one is off the chart. Western Standard carried the story this morning. We're going to have more to say about that. Before we do, though, I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your excellent and critical support. Without you, we could not continue to produce the content that we do, independent, Western, government bailout-free media. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com/membership or just click on membership right now. Sign up. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year. You could try it free for 15 days. See if it's for you. I think you're going to like it. Go right now. I'm waiting. Go. Right now. I said right now, people. Okay. Today's show is sponsored by,
Algodex. We got Algodex, and it's come down from Algonaut. And I know this sounds a little intertwined, but what it is cryptocurrency. And this is a company that's formed. If you want to get in on the ground floor of where this is going, I mean, cryptocurrencies are just huge right now. I mean, they're exploding. This is the thing. People don't have faith in the central banks anymore. They don't have faith in conventional banks, currencies. Go to algodex.com if you're looking to get into the cryptocurrency world. This is the place, and it will break down how you can get your foot into that door while this is still just taking off.
Excellent. And a sponsor of ours. So, of
Yes,
course, I love
that
them.
too.
Love them. The best. They're going to be huge. All right. Well, let's get into it. Melanie, Justin Trudeau says you're a racist.
Yes.
And a misogynist. You're a misogynist, right?
Well, me personally.
The things I've heard you say about women, make your blood curdle.
Yeah, he was speaking in a television interview last week and made those comments in French. It started to circulate.
Why don't you tell us exactly what it is he said?
Well, he said he called those that are unvaccinated racist and misogynistic extremists. And he's said quite a few other pointed things about the unvaccinated population as well. In his summer campaigning for the election, he referred to those unvaccinated as small fringe, special interest group, a mob, anti-science, racists, misogynistic, selfish,
Cannibal.
Yeah,
I think they were cannibals.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of words for him to get on crayon on one page to be able to get in an interview. He was
Just
very
see
determined.
me writing my notes.
Well, and not only that, but if you watch the actual video, which we have on our website, you'll even see the facial expressions match his visceral.
I think that's half what told the
Blackface.
story. If you look at that
It wasn't blackface.
that
in the
picture,
video,
he
but
looks
has
vicious when he's saying this. This is
does.
a man of projecting hatred.
Cory is he's saying this in French, but he said pretty extreme things about the unvaccinated in English as well. I think regular viewers will know that we've got mixed opinions on vaccination in the office here, but it's a free choice in this office. We've got vaccinated, we've got unvaccinated, but I think the one thing we all agree on with vaccination here is it's a choice, and you should do what you think is best for you based on the advice from your own doctor and your own personal decision. But he has said some pretty extreme things about vaccination in the past. You were actually mentioning some of it right there. But I think this was another level. And he said it in French. Do you think this is one of the, and it's not too unusual, Aaron O'Toole will regularly say in French that there'll be no pipelines through Quebec without Quebec's agreement, but he never, ever says it in English. Do you think this is one of those cases where he was only willing to say it in French but not in English, or has he actually crossed so far that he is actually probably fine saying it now?
I think he's crossed that far because, there's a lot of people in Quebec who aren't thrilled with the vaccine mandates and things as well. So I'm certain he infuriated them just as much as us. Typically, when he does the French versus English things, it's when he's going to take shots at the West, and he'll do it in a French interview. In this case, I think maybe he's more relaxed in those French interviews. He lets himself come out a little more unvarnished or unrestrained. But it was something else. It's beyond the pale. This is villainization and baseless. Just going from a logic point of view, aside from the principles of it, where do you make that leap from a vaccination concern to racism? Where does it let? It's just utter baloney. Misogynism. I knew you were going to get me on that. Either way, chauvinist.
Misogynism. That's
there we go.
We had a meeting about this today. I was like, Cory, it's misogyny, not misogyny.
Yeah,
mahogany.
Whatever. People like me who have issues with women,
I'm a mahoganyist.
My personal insecurities with the fair gender. We were getting down a rabbit hole.
Try working here.
But just again, where is this even linked? It's ridiculous. It's finding loaded words to throw at people that had. You could call up other things if you believe those.
I'm a mahoganyist.
Yeah. You could say that they're being irresponsible, or you could say even, and I don't believe these things necessarily, that you're putting others at risk. If you're one of those who still believes that it prevents spread, fine. But where does this racism and stuff come from? It's just bizarre. It's insulting, not just to the non-vaccinated people. It's insulting to think that we got a prime minister that's stupid.
Melanie, if you have 3 vaccinated people and 2 unvaccinated people, how much global warming do you get?
Oh, goodness.
Tough question for the newsroom.
That's a really tough one.
I'm afraid only Carleton grads can answer that question.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, speaking of Carleton grads,
I was going to mention too
yes.
that the story, the Trudeau story, actually jumped the pond, and they covered it in the UK.
Yes.
That's how far and wide people were discussing how I think those comments were, for a leader of a nation, perhaps a bit out of place.
Well, we'll turn towards CBC now. Melanie, once you set it up, CBC journalist has quit. She said she started when she started working for the CBC. She was probably the most big hardcore lefty in the CBC newsroom, which would take something.
Even a decade ago, that's quite a swing.
That's quite a something. Now she says she's considered like a right-wing extremist. Tell us about the story.
So Tara Henley is her name, and she started at the CBC back in 2013, said she landed in the perfect place for her. But by the time she left, which was just recently, I believe last week, she said, quote, she was seeing the worst trends in mainstream media coming out of the CBC, with massive lack of journalistic integrity. She talked about radical political agenda happening there, no critical debate. The list went on about her complaints of what she was seeing as far as the choice of stories, the content. She was really I think struggling in that environment, and decided it wasn't for her anymore, and jumped down to a US online news site called Substack.
Yeah, she said she's required to fill out racial identification forms for all of her guests. Fill out the form. I mean, like, what the? Oh, I almost dropped the big F one. This is wild. We know CBC does the woke racial identity politics stuff all the time, but I didn't know that they're filling out racial identification forms. Maybe they all walk. Maybe the people, different kind of guests, have to wear different badges as they walk through the studio. I don't know. Cory, I mean, I know you're a big CBC fan. How sad are you to see the CBC go down the hill?
Of course, I'm tickled to see more of it exposed. And just, I went off again during my show today over this. My issue with the CBC isn't even how woke they are or how ridiculous their content is and their politically correct crap. It's the fact that I'm paying $1 billion and some a year for that crap. I want to see it exposed. I want to see it from insiders. I want them to show people it's not just you. It's not your imagination. That organization is rotten. It's got some extremely serious problems. It's been taken over by the irrational. And the response from the hard woke left on social media was striking on this. They were livid with her. They have been attacking her. They attacked me and Jonathan Kay. There was one guy, some other writer from some other place. I won't bother mentioning him, but saying, "Oh, welcome to joining the likes of these guys," and things like they are furious. But why? Should we just goodbye, good riddance? We don't talk about you. But no, they are very upset because she exposed something that they don't want to see exposed. I think it's great, and we're going to see more of it.
And there is the tone of, like, when I read what she had to say here on Substack, what it sounded a lot like was Bill Maher. She's not a right winger. I mean, I wouldn't hire her to to take over Cory's show or something. I wouldn't.
The commenters would be wild.
Oh, I mean, like, she is not a right winger. She is not a conservative. She's not a libertarian, at least as far as I could tell. She sounded to me more like an old school liberal who didn't go over the waterfall. A guy like Bill Maher, who is a liberal, who is sort of a moderate lefty, is genuinely concerned with racial justice, social justice, poverty, and they might have different solutions to these issues than we might have around here. But they're not insane. They're just, I would believe, misguided in what they're trying to do or how they're trying to do it. But their objectives aren't insane. They don't believe that white people are inherently evil. They don't believe that men are inherently evil. That there's some kind of pyramid of victimhood, and that it is a virtue to be highly ranked as a victim with a certain scorecard. She comes across as kind of an old school liberal, like Bill Maher, and I mean, I never thought I'd look back to the days and be like, Jean Chrétien, good lefties.
Even look to Wendy Mesley. I mean, she got canceled out over an inadvertent statement during a show planning meeting. I mean, a 30-year history with the CBC. Nobody could ever claim Wendy Mesley.
She was reading a quote. She wasn't even her statement.
That's right.
She was reading a nasty quote.
And nobody could claim she was a right-winger. She's always been, again, an old school liberal, perhaps. Not the insane ones, but definitely liberal-leaning. Yeah. But that's all it took was one sentence, and her 30-year career was toast. It shows what the CBC thinks of their senior members. That's what I think what crosses the mind of what was it? That columnist's name again, actually, or that journalist. We should get that out there.
The gal?
Yes.
Tara Henley.
Tara Henley, yes. So either way, that lets them know if I want a future in this, if I'm looking ahead, I'm walking on thin ice. I mean, you're at any point, even if Wendy Mesley can get wiped out of this organization after putting in decades, anybody can. So she's getting while the getting's good.
Well, so she's gone to independent media, Substack. I mean, there's a lot of people who have gone that way now. It's, I mean, if you don't want to go the route of trying to build a whole damn company, Substack's actually a pretty good way. I mean, many of you watching, you want to try your hand in journalism, or it might just be sharing your opinion, but you want to actually make some money at doing it. Substack, what's the other one? Daniel Smith uses it.
Locals.
The Locals.
Yeah, that's
Substack.
more social media platform, but same sort of thing.
Like there is a way to monetize your work now without being a part of a larger organization. Western Standard's not big, but we're growing, and it's a lot of work to build something like that up. But you can get straight in. Like a lot of people in journalism, they have no interest in being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. They want to do just journalism. I'm not a journalist. I wanted to facilitate it, do a company, so I went down that route. But people like this, they can pick it right up like that. And I think it's not where all journalism is going to be, but I think in the future it's where a lot of it's going to go, is these small independent people.
It's the free market of ideas. It's great.
Yeah. Speaking of the free market, you know who likes the free market is our sponsor, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. I love these guys. I've been a member for years. I've known people in that organization going back well over a decade. Canadian Shooting Sports Association is a fantastic group that is standing on guard for the guns. They are defending your right to own, buy, possess, and safely use firearms in Canada, standing athwart efforts by the federal government to seize your rightfully owned firearms. They represent hunters, they represent sport shooters, they represent collectors, all sorts of gun owners, legitimate kinds of gun owners, standing up for the rights of legal, law-abiding gun owners. They put forward great ideas for cracking down on real gun crimes where guns are used in the pursuit of crimes, people who actually should not have guns. These guys are great. Common sense. They stand up for common sense policies. They're lobbying the politicians in Ottawa, and many times we know those politicians don't listen, and so they engage in advocacy campaigns, trying to raise these issues with the public, getting the public on side for common sense gun legislation in Canada. So if you're not yet a member, I strongly encourage you to. I was actually visiting family in Ontario this summer. I've got an uncle from Alberta who lives in Ontario. And I saw his truck. He's got a big F-350. Walked up on the back, and he had a CSSA bumper sticker right on the back there. And I said, "Thank you for supporting one of our sponsors, Uncle." He probably doesn't want me to mention his name, though. But Google CSSA or Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Go on there, click on Why Join. You should become a member. Support those who are standing up for our right to legally and safely own, use, and buy firearms in Canada. Check them out. All right. Speaking of someone else with some even more difficult initials, the CMHC, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. That might sound like it's a business that does good things, but on the contrary, it's a bureaucracy. Just because you put corporation after your name doesn't mean it actually makes money. CMHC, well, actually, a little bit of background. The Liberals have been talking about floating trial balloons, but denying till they're blue in the face. Over and over about home equity taxes. They say home equity tax would be a great idea, but we swear to God, we're never going to do it. Well, now the bureaucrats that report to the Liberal government at the CMHC have recommended a home equity tax. Tell us about it, Melanie.
Yeah, the CMHC, a report came out from them actually today. We broke the news this morning, recommended federal tax be charged on home equity. Now, this is for homes that are over $1 million in Canada. But I mean, when you look at across the country, there's more and more homes that are sort of moving into that realm, especially in Ontario, BC, Vancouver specifically. A lot of people are going to be facing this potential new tax. So at this point, CMHC recommending it to the feds. The feds have many times said, no, we won't bring this in. They vowed never to do it, but it feels like from some of the reporting coming through, they're considering it now. I mean, we're looking at them raising potentially $5.83 billion for the federal coffers with that tax. So that I'm sure is enticing.
Well, I think there's a simple solution to this. If your house is over $1 million, which is pretty much, if you've got a tool shed in Vancouver, it's probably over $1 million. If you've got a house over $1 million, it's simple. You sell it as you subdivide it and you sell it as two. You just declare it's two sides, and you tell someone, okay, this side of the house is one side and this side's the other one, and you sell it as two, and you've beaten it.
Maybe.
I mean, where there is a will, there's all this is going to do is distort the market. I mean, anyone who's ever visited Amsterdam, done a tour there, all the tour guides will tell you the reason that the houses are so damn skinny. You know why they're so skinny? Because you used to get taxed on how wide your house was.
Oh. So
everyone built these houses. There's one that's about as wide as, well, the three of us abreast here. It's the slimmest house in Amsterdam. They're not normally that's skinny, but they're these slim, tall houses. Mm-hmm. So all it's going to do is distort the marketplace further. Housing prices are out of control in some areas. Mm-hmm. But the biggest reason for that is interest rates, that you have the Bank of Canada artificially keeping interest rates low because governments will go broke if we actually allowed interest rates to hit a natural point. We've got Normally, when you have high inflation, you also have to have high interest rates. Well, we've got high inflation and high interest rates, and low interest rates, which is pretty contradictory for basic economic orthodoxy. And this is driving housing prices through the bloody roof. Inflation is driving it, and by having low interest rates, artificially low interest rates, it incentivizes mortgage lenders and banks to lend money for mortgages below rate. Like right now, the interest I pay on my mortgage every year is lower than the rate of inflation. The bank is paying me to own my house. It's crazy. That is what's driving housing prices, not the fact that we're not taxing them enough.
Well, and they're hoping that this is going to curb the runaway home prices. However, some people believe it could backfire, because then people will turn around and say, well, I'm going to be taxed this much, so I'm going to add that to the cost of my home when I determine the price to sell it. So it could backfire and actually end up bringing the prices of homes up.
So surely when you go to buy a chocolate bar, the convenience store likes to eat the cost of the GST. They don't raise the price of the chocolate bar for the GST, right? They just eat the cost, right?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Actually,
I think we had a similar discussion.
My example actually doesn't work entirely, because the Western Standard eats the cost of the GST on your memberships. It's just $10, and we pay the GST on that.
It still gets taken one way.
You guys are your members are paying GST, but we eat it on our side. But in most cases, with only very few exceptions, when you buy something, the tax is added on top, and so this is actually probably going to increase the prices of a lot of these houses, I think.
Well, it might. I mean, it might devalue it too. They've been working on this for years. I mean, Blacklock's first broke it, and I wrote on that in July 2020. I look back on it, and everybody went haywire, and they commissioned a study, same thing in UBC, and the language in it was something that was distressing, because they were calling it windfall money that these people had in these homes, and basically they literally said, one of them said there was like a lottery win for the people who had equity. So they're framing it already, say you don't deserve that money, you didn't earn it. We should take it. We should share it. I mean, socialism at its most disgusting. Well, it's disgusting in every level, typically. But 2020, they denied it.
I'd say starving Ukrainians is the most disgusting.
Yes. That's another aspect of it. Supply management at its most extreme. So we got that. You get a year later, get towards the election, another study surfaces. Again, it comes out. Everybody's fuming about it. And they say, no, we're not going to do that. And then I wrote about it last December, because a guy named Pomeroy, another study comes out. Same sort of thing, same sort of language. And yeah, he was really couching it and saying, this is to calm that superheated market. If we just make it undesirable to buy homes. I mean, he was you follow this guy's line of thinking. He wants government-owned row housing. Come on, we can just all get together. We don't have to bother with this sick capitalist equity market where people are owning their own homes. But what we got to realize is the government keeps denying it, but they keep asking for it, and they're setting it. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize too, you might notice when you do your taxes, there's a portion on the bottom. If you sold your primary residence, if you don't report it, you could pay an $8,000 fine. Even though it's not taxable, you have to report it to CRA. They're getting ready. They're getting ready, and they're.
Well, they already hit our secondary residences. They already hit with capital gains.
Yes, and that's what they're going to do with these, and that's what they want. There's a capital pool. They smell. They want that money. They got to figure out how to get it. And this is where they started too with the politics of envy. Hey, it's only those rich people. It's only those people with a house over $1 million, and it's only going to be a little bit. Come on, we know how that works. They get in, and then you know what? Budget's not really good this year. We're going to drop it down to 800, and then we're going to drop it down to 600. And next thing you know, they steal your retirement. And it's theft. It's bloody theft.
In my neighborhood, $1 million house would get you a lot of house. But there are, like, say, parts of Calgary where, inner city, and you got someone who's lived there for a long time, and their property, they might be living in a pretty small little post-war house, but the property itself altogether is worth more than $1 million. And that's not just the rich. And first of all, I don't resent people being rich. Great. Everyone wants to be rich. Raise your hand if you don't want to be rich. So, but you've got a lot of people who have just had land appreciate, the properties appreciated over time, and they're not rich, but they're going to get hit with this kind of thing.
Well, and the problem too is this has been a really classic example of how people have planned for their retirement for many, many years. So you step in to somebody who sort of banked on that, and you start implementing this stuff now. I mean, I think that seems like an unfair, cash grab for people who really sort of focused on paying that property down, and that was going to be how we retire. I
Yeah,
think
well,
it's almost a punishment.
Absolutely. And it's not just the rich, as Derek was saying. I mean, some of those houses in those areas where people who just happened, they got into them 30 years ago, but they worked their butts off and they paid their mortgage down. And this is what it turned out to be. Some people bought in a bad area and their house depreciated. That's part of the challenges too. But I mean, it's so insulting to say it was windfall or lottery. You know, Jane and I didn't buy my first place till I was 40, and that was down Pritis area. And it turned out it's just done pretty good in equity. But we had to cash my RRSPs. We had to borrow. I had to have a very good credit rating. I mean, we had to save. We went tight for a couple of years because that down payment was a lot to get together. And to say now that because I've got equity in it, I've won the lottery, kiss my ass.
I know some people in Calgary, they bought their houses during the National Energy Program. The National Energy Program came in 1980. Housing prices crashed. And you could walk into a pretty good house in 1980 if you still had the capital and you had a credit rating, and you could come in and you could get a pretty decent house. But they bought these things. They weren't worth a ton at the time, but they were looking at market forces. Ottawa decided to destroy Alberta's economy and the oil industry. They buy a house while it was low. And guess what? It's higher today. You're supposed to be punished because you bought in while the last Trudeau tanked the Alberta economy? There's something sick and perverse about that.
There is on lots of levels. It's a government that's greedy for dollars. They've overspent themselves, and they see one of the biggest, if not the biggest, capital pool in the country is private home ownership. They can't leave that golden egg alone.
Yep. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up there. I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued support. Without you, we couldn't have all the fun that we do here. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, please go to westernstandardonline.com. Click on membership. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year. Try it free for 15 days. Promise you're going to like it. Well, that's it. Cory, Mel, it's been a slice. Have a good evening.
Yeah, and tune in tomorrow. I got more ranting to come.
Tomorrow, yes. Tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. every weekday, actually, at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Check out Triggered with Cory Morgan. I love it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. God bless.